Hey there, and welcome. So, you've got an exam coming up on educational assessment? Well, you've come to the right place. Think of this as your personal study guide. Today, we're going to break down exactly what separates a good test from a bad one. All right, let's get right into it.
We've all been there, haven't we? You walk out of an exam and you're just thinking, what was that? That had absolutely nothing to do with what we actually did in class. That feeling, that frustration, is exactly why getting a handle on the principles of good assessment is so important.
So, what's the secret sauce? Well, it's not magic, it's actually a science. A fair and effective test is built on a really solid foundation. We're going to cover 3 basic ideas to get us started, and then we'll dive into the 5 core principles that every good test has to follow. This is basically your checklist for what makes a test work. Okay, first things first. Let's get our terms straight. You'll hear the words testing, assessment, and evaluation thrown around all the time, often like they all mean the same thing. But they don't. And knowing the difference, well, that's step 1 to really understanding this stuff. So let's start with a test. A test is a specific event, a tool. It's your midterm exam, your final. It's really just a snapshot in time that's designed to measure what you know right then and there. But here's the key. It's only one piece of a much, much bigger puzzle.
And that bigger puzzle? That's assessment. If a test is a single snapshot, then assessment is the entire photo album. It's the whole ongoing process of gathering information. So yeah, that final exam is part of it, but so are your class projects, your presentations, even your participation. It's all the pieces put together to see the full journey.
And finally, we have evaluation. Now this is the top level. Evaluation takes all that data, all those photos from the assessment album, and it uses them to make a big picture judgment. Is the course itself working? Is this teaching method actually effective? Evaluation answers that huge question. So, what does it all mean? So, the most important thing to remember is how they connect. A test is just one tool that you use in the process of assessment, and then all the results from that assessment are used to make an evaluation. You see, it's a logical flow from one small event to a huge program-wide decision. All right, now that we've got the basics down, let's get to the main event. These are the 5 non-negotiable principles that really decide if a test is any good. These are the rules of the game. Yep, 5 of them. And for any test to be seen as fair, as useful, as effective, it has to pass these 5 critical checks. And here they are: validity, reliability, practicality, authenticity, and washback. Think of this as the gold standard. A great test doesn't just nail 1 or 2 of these, it has to find a balance between all 5. So let's break them down one by one. First up is validity, and this one asks a really simple question. Does the test actually measure what it says it's going to measure? This example says it all, right? You wouldn't say a written test truly measures someone's ability to drive a car. To be valid, a driving test has to involve, well, driving. And this is tied right into authenticity, which asks if the test feels like a real-world task. A valid driving test is also an authentic one. Next is reliability, and this is all about consistency. Think of a scale you have in your bathroom. If you step on it 3 times in a row and get 3 completely different weights, you'd say it's unreliable. A test is no different. And, of course, a test has to be practical. That just means it isn't ridiculously expensive, it doesn't take forever to administer, and it's not impossible to score. And the last principle is a really powerful one: washback. Washback is the ripple effect that a test has back on the classroom. You see, big, high-stakes exams don't just measure what you've learned. They actually influence how teachers teach and what students end up studying. And that can be a good thing or a very bad thing. And this is how negative washback can kind of poison the whole learning environment. If a big exam only tests your ability to memorize facts, what are teachers going to do? They're going to teach to the test. All that important stuff like creative thinking and problem solving gets pushed to the side. And in the end, real learning takes a hit. Okay, for our third and final section, let's look at how all these principles play out in the 2 main types of assessment. It all boils down to one question about purpose. Are we assessing for learning or of learning? And here's the key difference. Formative assessment happens while you're still learning. Think of little quizzes or getting feedback on a first draft. The whole goal is to help you improve. Summative assessment, on the other hand, happens at the very end. It's the final exam, the big term paper. Its job is to judge what you have learned. One's a checkup, the other is the final verdict. So, let's wrap this all up. For your study notes, these are the absolute essentials.
First, remember assessment is a big process, not just a single test. Second, any good test has to be valid, reliable, and practical. It also needs to be authentic, so it feels like a real-world task. And never, ever forget the powerful influence of washback. And finally, know the difference. Formative is there to improve learning, while summative is there to judge it.
So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. If you think of teaching as the engine of education, is testing the steering wheel, or is it the rear-view mirror? Is its purpose to guide the learning process while it's happening, or is it just to look back and see how far we've come? And the answer, as you probably know by now, is that a good system needs to do both.